Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy. You can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode. I'm really excited today because I have another dietitian with me, Paula Sturm. She is a registered dietitian with a focus on functional medicine nutrition, as well as master-level trained neuro-linguistic programmer and a hypnotherapist. Paula's business, Radically Nourished, is located in San Diego, California. She primarily helps individuals work through challenging gut issues, as well as helps women overcome the challenges that hormone imbalances create. She blends science and energy work to bring a creative twist to the healing journey. Paula, welcome to the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So obviously we share an interest in both being dietitians, as well as your practice tends to focus primarily on women, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, primarily women. I see some guys too.
Yeah, same here. I do help the men as needed, right? They need their help too. There's just sometimes some differences in men and women. And so kind of having that focus can be good, just like some dietitians focus on men's health.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about your career as a dietitian, how that began, and why your love for specializing in the gut specifically.
Sure. Yeah. So this is actually a second career for me. I started out as a hairstylist and just kind of got bored with the profession and I outgrew it, and I really wanted to go back and finish my degree. And I had started working out and started eating differently and really realized it was kind of fun and kind of a passion. And I really wanted to explore that a little bit more and actually get educated in it. And so that's when I decided to go back to school originally it was for exercise physiology. And as my first semester, I was in some of those classes and realized that nutrition really had the biggest impact on body changes and your health. Fitness, of course, is important, and it's always we always recommend exercise, but you can't exercise yourself out of a bad diet. So really, you need to eat well. So I switched my major to become a registered dietitian. I really wanted to have that title behind my name. I thought it would help get me a little more credibility, help me get into the door a little bit for other things. And so pursued that path, and then really knew that I wanted to explore more of that functional medicine, or at that point it was more called integrative medicine or, holistic medicine sort of avenue. Really wanted to work on preventing people from getting sick in the first place. It's like, okay, there's got to be things that we can do to help us stay well and not end up in the hospital. Like I saw so many people in the hospital when I was in my internship, and I really felt so helpless because there was so much that we could do before they got to that point. People in the cardiac lab and all of those places where it's like, well, if, we had some changes made prior, there wouldn't be in this situation now. And so it was really, I felt like my hands were tied almost at that point, because then all you're really doing is managing an illness. And I really wanted to manage wellness. And so that's when, after I got my registered dietitian degree and then, got all of the credentials and things set up, that's when I started pursuing, okay, now what do I do next? How do I get trained in functional medicine? And how do I get trained in that aspect of nutrition? And so there wasn't a whole lot out there at that point, because this was about a little over 10 years ago, but I did find some things, and one thing led to another, and ended up getting certified in functional medical nutrition therapy. So that took some time, but well worth it. And it's a constant journey of learning. And I always just feel like every time I learn something new, more I don't know. It's like, oh, now I have even more questions. That's why I have so many books.
I was going to say, look at all the books behind you, for those who can see this video. Yeah. So you're always learning, I can see. And I never knew that about you, that you were a hairdresser before, but makes sense. You always have stylish hair as long as I've known you. So
It's like riding a bike, you can't ever forget it.
yeah. And I love that you mentioned, how nutrition is probably best as preventative medicine. I think it's so great that we can use nutrition to treat illness, but I think it is best as a preventative medicine to prevent those illnesses from even happening. And I think that's, I have a similar story of my very first job as a dietitian was in a clinical setting as well, which, is needed, but I was the same thing where I was like, wait, I want to use nutrition for wellness. So I agree with you there. And I think it's really powerful too.
Yeah, I agree.
So a lot of people have gut issues or think they have gut issues. And I really want to get into this with you. I was wondering if you could first just talk briefly on maybe what some of the common or most frequently seen gut issues are in your practice. I mean, people talk about IBS, people talk about SIBO or small intestine bacterial overgrowth. People have GERD, acid reflux. I don't know if you could briefly talk about what some of the like common things that you see are.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ones, and a lot of people come in with varying symptoms. Some of them are just really bloated, and they're like, I feel like I'm 6 months pregnant by the end of the night, or they have, diarrhea, or they're constipated, so it's either one or extreme or the other. And sometimes it's also accompanied by, all of the things, or it's accompanied by a little bit of heartburn here and there when they eat certain things or sort of randomly. And even there's things that you wouldn't think are gut related that they're also coming in with fatigue and brain fog and skin issues. Those are actually gut related too. So they're coming to see me with these things that seem completely unrelated. And we can, oftentimes there's more than one root cause, but a lot of times it comes down to what's going on in your gut. But definitely SIBO, imbalanced bacteria, whether it's in the small intestine or in the colon, can create a lot of issues as well as candida. I see a lot of people with candida too. And sometimes we don't know what they're exactly dealing with. And so we have to explore and see exactly what it is, because they'll come in and be like, well, I'm bloated, I'm gassy, and I'm constipated, but why? Why is that? Are you not chewing your food? Do you not have enough enzymes? Do you not have enough stomach acid? Do you have some bacteria that's imbalanced? Is there some candida? Are there parasites? So there's a lot of places that we can look and explore to see where all of those symptoms are coming from. And it's emotional too. Sometimes it's like not even related to anything physical. Sometimes it's completely not physical. So we also have to look there, which is maybe worms.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that with you in a moment because I know that you bring a lot of like emotional healing stuff into your practice as well. But before doing so, everything you were just listing, this is what I see, what some of my clients have done on their own, maybe before working with me. When people are experiencing constipation, diarrhea, extreme bloating, this is what I see happen is people are just like, okay, well, let me go gluten-free, cut out lactose and take a probiotic. And they just do these things without a professional necessarily telling them to. And in my space, what I see, and I'd love to hear your input on it, but what I see is that can sometimes do more harm than good because we're not addressing the root problem. We haven't figured out what the root problem is. And then there's this level as well as the fact that your gut actually needs to be fed. And so if you're now not feeding your body nutrition, you're not feeding your gut and you're preventing it from even healing. So can you speak to that side of how people just jump to eliminating, and how do you safely approach elimination style diets?
Yeah, that's a big one too, because I think a lot of people think that because there's so much available over the counter and there's so much information that people have access to, but they're not able to apply it to exactly what's going on with them. And so whatever they read, they apply that, and maybe it's not the exact information they need for themselves. And so they are doing themselves a lot of harm because they don't know exactly what the reason is for their symptoms. And so then they're just sort of medicating, if you will, for something they don't even know what they're medicating self-medicating for. I mean, you have to have a reason for doing what it is you're doing. And if you don't know the exact reason or don't have the idea what the reason is, yeah, you could certainly be doing harm. And then a lot of times what people will do is people have gut issues for years and years and years before they ever go get help for it. Like a long time, people have IBS for like 10 years before they ever see somebody to get help. In the meantime, they've been self-medicating or self-dieting or self-eliminating things and self-supplementing without any rhyme or reason, and they're definitely getting themselves in a hole. And so then by the time they come to see me, they're eating 5 foods. Like, well, now I can only eat this and I can only eat this and I can only eat this. Well, yeah, of course, because you just, you didn't get to the root of what was going on. Things got worse progressively. Then you started cutting out things that then the things that you're cutting out were feeding some good bacteria also, which now are all gone because now they have had no food, and now all the bad things start taking over, and it just gets worse and worse and worse with the more things they attempt to do. So you have to be really strategic about what you do. So what I generally recommend, and it's not to say that you can't eliminate gluten and dairy, and those two things I often find to be problems with people, but you want to go for sure, or at least give it a trial. So when somebody comes to see me, I do recommend doing an elimination diet while we're waiting for test results, which does include the major food sensitivities like soy, gluten, dairy, peanuts, some other things, sometimes eggs, sometimes not. I try to eliminate as few things as possible just to make sure that we're getting a lot of nutrition, making sure that we're making up for what we're missing. Is there still enough fiber? People mistakenly take out too much fiber from their diet. Sometimes it is appropriate to remove or eliminate or reduce the amount of fiber for a period of time while you're working on changing that balance of gut bacteria, but you always have to get those things back in. Otherwise, you're never going to fix the problem. A lot of people remain on what, I don't know, maybe a lot of people listening, maybe not, but there's a common diet out there right now called FODMAPs, which is a very therapeutic diet, and it can be beneficial for periods of time, but people end up on it for years and then they struggle. They're on it for years. They're not getting the results or the relief that they need, that at first they did, and then they don't. And then all of a sudden it's almost impossible for them to reintroduce foods. And we have to be really careful and gentle about reintroducing things. So because you need to get those foods back into your diet. So it can be a slippery slope when you start doing things on your own.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So I think I would want to have, if me personally, if I were going through that, I would definitely want to have guidance and some oversight, because it sounds like what you're saying is the process of elimination. We're not just cutting out food. You need to make sure that you are still feeding your gut. And the purpose for cutting out certain foods is to figure out what the root cause is and then work to overcome that and work to fix that root problem. And then you're also saying that most times you're not supposed to be necessarily being on these restrictive or elimination style diets for long periods of time. You're supposed to reintroduce foods. You're supposed to be able to eat. That client that you mentioned who was like, oh, I'm only eating 5 things now. Like, that's not healthy. That's not the right way to do it.
Yeah. The goal is always to reintroduce and see where that tipping point is. It's like, okay, well, we suspect eggs may be an issue, so let's remove them for a little while, but let's see if we can try and reintroduce them at some point, because maybe your body's healed a little bit. Your digestive tract is in a better place where it can handle some of those things. We want to expose our body to a little bit of like insults, some things that maybe give your body a little bit of a challenge. That's exactly what an antioxidant is. It's a little bit of poison, if you will. So your body has to create a little bit of a response so it can up level. We want our body to be able to handle things. We don't want to make our bodies so incapable of handling fibers and handling lectins, and people are removing things because we think that they're bad, but no, they do also serve a purpose. Maybe for a period of time they are harmful for you, but we want to challenge your body to be able to handle it. Now, there may be some things that you can't add back in. Maybe gluten is one of those things, and it often is one of the most challenging things to add back in. And so maybe there are some things that we have to leave out. But if there's 5 foods that we leave out instead of 5 foods that we're eating, that's way different, because we want to have as many foods and as much variety, because that variety is what dictates what our microbiome looks like, what that gut bacteria looks like. And when we're eating the same things day in and day out, and a lot of people just get into this habit in general because we're busy and we're just get sort of in ruts of food eating. And so our microbiome starts to shrink, and the diversity of the gut bugs start to shrink. And the more diversity we have in our gut, the better, the healthier we are, the more resilient we are. And that's what we're trying to do, is build up that resilience, because we can handle the more things that we can handle. We want to be able to go out in the world, come across microorganisms, and our body can handle it. We don't want to live in bubbles. We don't want to live isolated from things and protected too much from things. We want to get in the dirt. It's because we're not in that dirt anymore is why we're in the state we're in.
Oh, I love this. And I think for those listeners who do struggle with underfueling or red S or disordered eating, which are topics I speak of often, I think what you're saying hits on this perfectly, which is if you're not eating enough, if you're underfueling, your diversity of ingredients is so limited that your gut doesn't have the opportunity to be strong. And so it's not. And so then you're feeling like, well, I can't tolerate these foods. And that just perpetuates the cycle of underfueling and red S and disordered eating. And what I found, Paula, in my practice with these clients who come to me who are underfueling and who are also saying like, oh, I can't tolerate high fats or I can't tolerate gluten, I do just challenge them to eat it and to heal their body and to overcome the energy deficiency. And in doing so, their gut heals as well, because we're putting that diversity of ingredients, we're building up that gut microbiome again. And it is amazing the progress they see. And it's not to say that food sensitivities don't exist, because they do. But that is a huge part of just supporting the gut microbiome and creating diversity in the first place.
Yep, exactly. We have to challenge. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. Adding those things in at first can seem uncomfortable. A lot of people will be like, well, I added beans in and I'm miserable right now. I'm like, okay, good. Things are changing, adjusting. They're going to throw a fit for a little bit until they get used to it. Okay, maybe let's back off on the portion, but don't stop. Keep doing it. Okay, well, maybe we need to go a little slower. Maybe we don't have, maybe the digestive enzymes are, we're not digesting our food quite well enough. Are you chewing it slowly? Are you eating in a relaxed state? Is there other things that are creating the discomfort or the bloating? Is it the beans or is it something else? But we want to challenge the body to handle it. So yeah, as much diversity and getting as much different food as we can is good, and challenging your body's ability to overcome and meet the challenge. Your body is stronger than we think it is, I think.
Oh, I agree with that. And I'm having this like athletic sports metaphor go in my mind right now. It's like just every time you hit the gym, right? It's challenging, and maybe your muscles are a little weak and so you get sore, but it's in the act of doing it that your muscles get stronger. In the same way with your gut, the act of doing it, of eating some of these foods, it might feel uncomfortable, but it's giving it that opportunity to get stronger.
Yeah, exactly. We got to break down those fibers and build back up again.
Yeah. I love the sports metaphors that I can always bring into nutrition. It makes sense though. It's training your gut, training your stomach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it wasn't used to doing that before, it's going to be hard for it at first it has to wake some things up. It has to like, oh, okay, now we have to do this now. All right. It's like when you wake up in the morning, you're always not quite on point. You're a little groggy. So yeah, we need to get those things back up and moving, and they'll figure it out eventually. Sometimes it's a little slow, and, as long as we have the environment for that to happen, it should happen and be okay.
Yeah. Now, I also heard you say, is there something else going on? Stress, anxiety. And I know this plays a huge part in our gut health. Your gut health and your nervous system are so strongly linked. And, when I read your bio at the beginning of this show, you specialize in hypnotherapy and just kind of bring a creative twist to this healing journey of the gut. So can you tell us a bit more about this interaction between our nervous system and our gut and how it functions.
Yeah, well, your gut's hugely innervated. Lots of little nerves are just entangled amongst all of that, minutia in our gut. Everything has nerve endings to it, and that directly goes up into your brain through that vagus nerve, and it's quick. So lots of things can irritate that nerve either from your gut or from your brain. So it can go both ways. So, if we have gut issues, it can create things in our minds. We could have brain fog or anxiety or depression because the things going on in our gut are creating it, or the anxiety and depression are creating what's going on in our gut. So, if we're chronically in a stress state, and stress, we need some stress. We need to have, a little bit of stress is good. We need to have some of that because that's, again, how our body builds resilience. But when we have chronic insults where our body's just constantly under pressure, either from work or from the thoughts going on in our head or just from the emotions we're feeling or from relationships we're in, constantly not having that ability to relax and take that edge off. And when our adrenal glands start kicking in, that can really have an impact on how your body digests food. When you're under that state, your body is not in a state of digestion. It's in a state of fight or flight, or fleeing or staying still, or it freezes. It either freezes and doesn't do anything. And then that's when a lot of people get constipation because literally everything locks down.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, oh my God, I can't move. Nothing's going to move. Your thoughts aren't going to move. You're not going to be able to talk. Your digestion is going to stop. And so that's, I often see that. Or if somebody's constantly just anxious and they're like running around and, there's like that frenetic energy, a lot of times those people have diarrhea, like everything's moving way too fast. And so those nerves are overfiring and things are just trying to eliminate at that point. And also in that state, your body is less likely to produce the acid it needs to digest or the enzymes that it needs to digest. Slowly, those things start decreasing and decreasing. And then what's happening is then when we don't have enough acid in our stomach, then we can't digest our protein well. And then that leaves undigested proteins to come into our GI tract, which leaves it as food for bad bacteria to eat. And then it starts proliferating the growth of those things, or we're not able to kill off some of the bacteria that we inadvertently eat in our food. And so then that manifests and gets down into the GI tract where it's not supposed to be. Our bodies should have been able to kill it either in our mouth through our saliva or through the stomach acid before it got through. So all of those things start to decrease. And even when we're stressed, we don't make enough saliva. And so that's where we start digestion is there. And so if we have a dry mouth and we're not starting that carbohydrate digestion, so many things can go wrong under stress. We start to eat fast and eating while you're watching TV can be stressful. If you're watching a stressful show, you're not paying attention to what you're doing when you're eating and you just start eating and you're like, oh my God, you're like really nervous about a movie. And then that's going to slow down your eating or your digestion. And even just that, sometimes, I have done it. I've eaten and watched a crazy show and I've finished eating bloated and felt awful. Like I just like totally messed up digestion just because I was watched a crazy show while I was eating.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. I think that our listeners are going to have to listen to this episode twice because you just dropped so much knowledge about everything. And when you really think about the digestive system as like starting in your mouth, right? Those enzymes in your mouth and then all the way through and it's like a long process, which is a bit overwhelming to say. There's, a lot of room for error, a lot of things that can go wrong. But I think what you're highlighting right here is just really being mindful of how we are eating, what our mood is. Do we need to slow down? That's definitely something I teach with my clients too, is like mindful eating without distractions. And, I work with a lot of athletes who are so busy. I mean, lots of people are busy. Let's face it. Life is busy, but athletes as well. It's like eating literally on the go or on the run or squeezing in like just a shake once they finish their workout, hit the gym, then they got to get to work or whatever it is. And it's like that eating on the go. It's better than not eating, but finding more ways to slow down that process or to bring mindful and bring like just slow it down and relax is actually going to help you digest better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I recommend people, I ask them about their eating habits and then I recommend, I'm like, okay, well, can you set your fork down between bites to, just like to make you slow down because then you'll have to pick it up again. So it just is an automatic way to make you slow down eating is by just setting your fork down. Easy trick, to slow that down. And that could be the one thing that's preventing you from digesting and feeling like you have a healthy digestive system going on is just by eating too fast. That could be the thing.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I'm actually working on that with one of my clients right now. And since I have the expert on the show right now, she eats really fast, chews a lot of gum, drinks carbonated beverages. She's got a bubbly tummy. She's just swallowing a ton of air all the time.
Yeah.
So that's what we're working on is like all of her digestion issues, and we're still getting to the root. That's why we're actively working on it. But, we're not going down the process of eliminating something. We are making sure that we're eating food, not air, because she's always, swallowing a lot of air. I think that's what's going on. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And see, that's where you got to start with like those simple things first. It's like what could be contributing to what's going on. That's where getting all of that information and getting that background on somebody. It's like, okay, you're chewing gum, you're drinking bubbly water, and you eat fast. Well, let's start there because let's see what clears up when we remove those things. Okay, well, if it's still there, then there might be something else, but let's do that first because that's a lot of air. And when you're chewing gum or drinking something sweet all day, your digestive tract actually isn't getting a break. Your digestive tract needs a break. If it thinks it's eating and digesting all the time by chewing gum, because that's going to trigger your body to think it's digesting, it needs a break. And so your digestive tract needs time to do different actions when it has no food in it. And when it constantly feels like there's something coming in to digest, it's like always on the ready. And if there's nothing coming in, or if it's just, like a sugary beverage or something like that, it's just digesting sugar. It's not getting that break to do the other things that it needs to do. And so you're missing an action that your body needs to take. And so chewing gum can be detrimental from a chewing or swallowing air standpoint, but also because your body is not getting that break that it needs. That's why eating, like people that graze and like to eat like every hour, they're always stuffing a little something in their mouth and they're not eating full meals, often have digestive issues too, because their body's just constantly digesting. And digesting is a lot of work to do. Your body does still need a break from that.
Mm. Well, okay, so here's another sports metaphor. Just like you can't train all day long, you need to rest and recover so that you can train the next day. That's exactly what you need to do with your gut too. You actually do need to give it time to rest, recover, do some of the things, repair work that it has to do so that it can properly digest your next meal. I love that. And I think this is really important too. Now, when you say a break, I hear what you're saying about the grazers. And again, I just want to pull some of my clientele into this who are athletes and they are eating every few hours, but I do encourage those meals. We got to get a meal in, right? So it might be a meal and then 2 hours later, a snack. And then 3 hours later, another meal. Are those kind of 2-3 hour chunks? Is that enough plus overnight? Is that an appropriate amount of rest?
Yeah. And everybody's different here. And athletes, of course, they need more fuel. So they need to eat more often and they need those specific periods of time when you eat. Like I'm a big fan of getting on a schedule. I think your body does well from a circadian rhythm standpoint. Okay, breakfast is at this time and you have a complete meal at breakfast. You have a complete meal at lunch. You have a complete meal at dinner, a couple snacks that are, balanced out in there as well, giving your body that overnight time to recover and rest from eating. But then, yeah, giving those couple hour breaks in the middle of the day. Sometimes people that aren't as active, maybe they only need breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's fine. But everybody needs a little bit different something going on. But the people that are just having an apple at breakfast, and then an hour later they eat a piece of chicken, and then an hour later they eat some nuts. You're almost eating a whole meal over a course of 3 hours, and that's not good. We want to bring all of I'm like, okay, all of those things are good. Can we bring them all at the same time and eat them at one time and eat them then, and then give ourselves a break, and then eat a snack and give ourselves a break. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Like the concept of a fueling schedule and giving that consistency for your body. And it sounds too, something I always say is that, almost the better you treat your body, the better your body's going to treat you back. So if you can be consistent with your fueling, your digestion's probably going to treat you a lot better as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because then it knows it's like, oh, okay, well, it's time to get revved up for some food. And so your body gets prepared for it because your body's on these different cycles of time. Your body's doing something differently all throughout the day. So we want to optimize that. Your body's more into digesting food properly earlier in the day versus later in the day. So we want to make sure that we're eating enough food earlier in the day and maybe tapering off later in the day, depending on what you have going on. But you still want to be able to give your body those consistent clues that this is what we do. It's almost like training a baby to sleep and eat. We have a schedule for babies and for kids. This is snack time. We need to do that. We need to do that through our whole life. Like, this is breakfast time. This is snack time. This is, at least it doesn't have to be so rigid where you're like every day, we don't want anything to go to an extreme, but most of the time you want to be on a schedule. Obviously during holidays and, vacations and things, your schedule's going to fall off, and that's appropriate too. We want our bodies again to be resilient. We want it to be able to bounce back from things. And if we're too rigid with our eating schedules too, that can then throw us off as well, because then when we do get off our schedule, then we have an issue, and then we, things can spiral out of hand. So don't ever take anything to an extreme. Like, find a nice, happy little medium with all of it. But generally, good behaviors are, having that schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad you threw that in there about we don't have to be on the minute or on, but just, what are you eating your 3 meals and 3 snacks a day, and not skipping meals either. And, really good advice. Really great. Well, this has been so insightful, Paula. It's just, you actually taught me something just now. I always tell my clients to fuel more in the morning because I see that's where people are struggling to eat enough. And that's often when people go to the gym and get their workouts is in the morning. And that's when they're under fueling. And I just heard you say it for the first time that your digestion is actually better in the first half of the day as well. And I never even knew that. So much good information that you just dropped on us, and we really appreciate it. So I have some rapid fire questions if you're willing to play along. So Paula, if you could name your favorite food, something you could eat every single day and never be sick of it, what would that be?
Favorite food. And I'm pretty can it be like anything? Like, even if it's like a cheat food? Because
yes. Anything.
Like, if I could have my grandmother's bread when I was growing up and have that now, like, her recipe died when she passed away, and she never shared it, so nobody can make it. And so if I could just have a loaf of her bread and have that every day of my life, I would be a happy camper. With butter.
Be a happy person. That's beautiful. Oh, I hope that you can keep trying and maybe replicate her recipe and then pass it down with your family too. Yeah. Awesome. So what about your favorite spectator sport? What's your favorite sport to watch?
Football. Yeah, I'm originally from Wisconsin, so Packer fan over here. So football, Packers. Yeah.
Amazing. What about to play yourself or to participate in yourself?
I'm not a big team sport player, to be honest. I competitively ride my Peloton in my living room every day.
Yes.
Yes. Does that count?
Yeah, that counts. If that's your favorite thing to do. And that Peloton, that's a fun thing. I don't have one myself, but a couple times when I've gone to hotels, I've messed around with it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of addictive, which is, I mean, hey, it's a good addiction, right? Well, in a way, you can always go extremes on things, but
For you, it sounds like a good one.
yeah, it motivates me to get up and work out.
That's awesome to hear. Is there, Paula, a female athlete that inspires you or that's your role model?
Female athlete that inspires me. Well, just speaking of my Peloton, because I don't follow a ton of athletes, although I really love gymnastics, but I haven't, the Olympics that were supposed to be on, I was really bummed that they canceled or delayed that. But I really love like gymnastic athletes. I think they're really powerful. But just my Peloton, there's a couple instructors. Robin Arzon is one of them, who is just she's so passionate and she's so gung ho, and she comes up with the best sayings. I like really want to have my phone like recording some of her motivational statements, just because she's just such a powerhouse, and I just love her energy. So she's fantastic, and I love her. So and she's definitely an athlete. So I'm going to say her.
That's awesome. It's so good and she's somebody you can, every day have in your life with the Peloton and have her motivate you every day. That's amazing. So our final question is, like I said, you've dropped so much knowledge on us today. If you could give our listeners, one piece of advice or something that they can take action on to, whether it's improve their health from, gut health, holistic health, or even more of that emotional side of things, the nervous system, what's one piece of advice that listeners can maybe take action on today that will make an improvement?
Yeah, picking one. Let's see. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is paying attention and being aware. I think we get really absent-minded and are so busy go doing our things or to-do list that we aren't paying attention to the things that our bodies need. And our bodies are giving us signs and giving us signals all the time, and we override them. And that's when we get into bigger problems, because your body gets louder and louder and louder when you don't do what it wants you to do. If you're not listening, it's going to get louder and symptoms are going to get worse. So if you can just check in with your body in the morning, check in with your body at night, and ask, like, what am I feeling? What do I need? What's this trying to tell me? Sometimes if we can just have that awareness and then take the action on what our body is saying or what we're intuitively getting. Our bodies are smart. We are smart. If we just listen and just take what the messages that we're given and act on those, I think we would be in a better place instead of just disregarding things and putting things off and not listening to what our bodies need. Does our bodies need a nap? Do our bodies need fuel? Do we need more water? Do we need more vegetables? Do we need to slow down? Do we need to take a break? And honestly listening, I think, and that can be the challenge also is, can we do that without feeling guilty too?
Yeah, it's so amazing. Just listen to your body, be mindful. It's really smart. I think what you told us today too, so many people struggle with their gut, but what I'm hearing from you is your gut knows what it's doing. So we just need to create the environment to let it do its thing. Your gut knows how to heal. Your gut, your gut is just like any other muscle in your body. You got to train it. And so this was so helpful. I know it's going to help so many people. Paula, thank you so much. Again, this is Paula Sturm. She's the owner and dietitian at Radically Nourished. And we can find you on Instagram at radically_nourished or www.radicallynourished.com. And all of that information will be included in the show notes. So thank you again, Paula, for joining.
My pleasure. It was great talking to you. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
I really hope you enjoyed that episode, and thanks for listening. But before I let you go, I have free resources that you can have access to right away, right now, so that you can start fueling your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. First, I have your Red S Recovery Race. If you've ever wondered if you might be struggling with Red S, curious to learn more, or know you have Red S and are looking to recover fast,
then you can head to www.riseupnutritionrun.com/RedS and download the Red S Recovery Race. See how you place and figure out the next steps to recovery. Plus, while there, I have a few other great resources for you, including 3 nutrition secrets that every elite athlete swears by, and access to our private Facebook community, Female Athlete Nutrition. So again, to gain access to all of this, head to riseupnutritionrun.com/RedS. That's /REDS. And you can gain access and get the help you need fast. Too many girls and women and female athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. Become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and I'll see you next time.